Hello Rebel and welcome back to my life. This video both is and is not about the COVID-19 virus. Yeah, that's still a thing. At the time that I'm writing and filming this video, it's been easy to forget that COVID-19 even still exists. There's been so much going on with the protests and racial injustice in America that sometimes it feels like we've forgotten about the pandemic that has killed more than 100,000 people in this country alone. So a few weeks ago, when Oregon was just starting to reopen in limited phases, some friends and I went and visited the Wildlife Safari Park in Southern Oregon. Wildlife Safari is a park where you drive through it in your car and see the various animals that they have there in a zoo-like environment, but where the animals have a ton more room to roam around. So this was good on a number of levels. We were out and able to do a group activity and sort of talk to each other and see each other, but because we were all in our own cars, we were also maintaining social distancing and not really getting too much in each other's spaces. And on another level, I've never actually been a big fan of zoos. They just feel so constrictive, and I can't enjoy them because I always feel like the animals are in such a small space, and it kind of makes me sad. Even though I know analytically that they're being treated well and humanely, and I also know that zoos are incredibly important for conservation efforts. I know all that. Doesn't change the gut feeling that I get when I visit a zoo. The Wildlife Safari Reserve, though, is a very different story. It was my first time visiting, and I really enjoyed it. So they have both predators and prey, and obviously the predators are still kept in cages and sort of locked off areas, but they're much bigger than what you'd find at a typical zoo.
What an absolute unit. This chunk of monk is an icon. He large. Oh, he thick. Oh, he thick. Boy, he shakes that ass when he walks.
Meanwhile, prey animals are allowed to just roam freely through the whole park. They are sort of divided into different zones, and they've got zones for like different regions of the world. So they've got like a North America zone and an Africa zone. But the zones aren't really like particularly locked off from each other, and sometimes the animals will just roam around. So you could, and we did, see North American moose just chilling in the Africa section with the rhinoceros. They're both just like, you have a horn, I have a horn. They're different, but we're cool. These animals, they weren't totally free, right? Like they couldn't leave the reserve, but they weren't totally caged up either. They had lots of room to roam around. They had access to everything they needed: food, shelter, companionship. Of course, most people would agree, and I am one of them, that it would be better if they could all just be free. Just if all animals could be out living the lives that they were evolved to live. But for a variety of reasons, it was necessary for them to remain where they were. It wouldn't actually be kind to release them all suddenly out into the wild only to live brutal, short lives that ended in pain and death. Maybe that wouldn't happen to all of them. Maybe it would only happen to some, but it would certainly happen to enough of them that it's not worth the risk. Especially when the life that they were living was, all things considered, not too bad. And indeed, many of those animals will be released. That is another service that Wildlife Safari provides. If an animal is sick or injured, they will take care of it long enough to nurse it back to health and then release it back into the wild in the safest and most humane way possible. But I imagine someone seeing those animals and demanding that they be released immediately, that they be unconditionally launched into the wild with no regard for any danger, that the animals deserved to be free no matter the consequences. And I thought about how cruel and short-sighted a decision that would be, no matter how good the intentions were behind it. Anyway, that's all my thoughts on the Wildlife Safari Reserve, Rebel. A reminder that I release a new episode of Underrealm on my Patreon every single Friday. That means today. If you support me for even just $1 a month, you can read every episode of Hellskin that I have released so far, as well as all future books that I write. So if you want to be one of those awesome and incredibly attractive individuals, click on the Patreon link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Friday. Bye!